Okay, first thing, futures. Futures are bouncing right here at this line on the 15 minute, 39.80. Pretty sure there is some reason for that. If not, we'll take it that this line was acting as support. However, the trade is not here, or rather, the trade was not here. The trade was here, right? The trade was here, DXY. So this thing came back all the way down here at 101.60 area and bounced again. Where is that 101.60 coming from? Again, the same chart. We want to go down here on the month. It has come down, tested the 21 again, and it's trying to bounce off of that again. And why is it trying to bounce instead of breaking here? Because if you see this chart, this is a week and it is oversold. So it's unable to push to the downside. So very likely if the bounce sustains in DXY, and also you can see what is happening with US 10. We'll get into that in a minute. So again, US 10 is the same story basically, but yeah. So the weekly chart is getting oversold. So if it bounces, the idea for it is to come back up into 102.80, 102.90 area. As of now, that's where we stand with that. And again, even though it is bouncing, it has bounced pretty decent here, about 60 basis points, 50 to 60 basis points. But still, the SMI hasn't crossed. Yeah, of course, it's a weekly chart. It'll take a bit of time for SMI to actually cross over. So, but we are monitoring that situation. So let's say if it starts to bounce, then you're looking at the five. This is the first target. One or two, and this is the bigger picture yet. 102 80, 102.75, 102.80 area. If that clears the eight, same thing. Five, then the eight, about 103.50, 103.60 area. So this is what I'm looking at, and unless DXY breaches the eight to the upside on the week, I'm okay with that. It'll keep chopping if it does. And if it does take this path to the upside, obviously you'll have some more softness in the markets, depending on how Apple and Microsoft does. And Microsoft reports tomorrow, I believe tomorrow, day after, but tomorrow I think. So I don't want to be short Microsoft obviously into the earnings. Microsoft has a history of running up after earnings. So yeah, watching DXY. So let's say DXY takes this back to the upside, then you'll have markets moving to the downside. However, if DXY, if you go on this chart, the daily chart, and same thing if DXY does what it does, what it did on Friday, 5, 8, and starts to come to the downside again, market will start to move to the upside. Same story, nothing new here. So as of now, you can clearly say it's hitting the five and taking a breather from there. And if it clears the 5, then we'll look at the one standard deviation, the 102.33 area. That clears the 8 at 102.40 to 102.50 area. If that clears, obviously we'll jump onto this chart and then we'll follow the path. And if it hits either the 5 and starts to take a breather or the 8 starts to take a breather, then we'll keep looking for an upside in the markets. Right. So that's how that is going right now. And you can actually look at this chart here and probably try and figure out that this was oversold and was hitting a major moving average on the monthly time frame. So it bounced. Fair enough. And it is running into resistance and the well, rather I would say good thing is that it is clearing the resistance here, right? The 50 moving, the 100 moving, then the bright chances of it going up all the way here into the 200 moving average and hitting this number right now. So now there are two things going on here. DXY is of course bouncing, and you can clearly see that yesterday Bank of Japan did make some moves, and that is affecting DXY as well. But right now the focus is not really DXY. The focus is earnings, right? So how the earnings goes, especially tomorrow, Microsoft, day after tomorrow, Tesla. Tesla is a big indicator of sentiment. It does hold some value, but if sentiment sours, then you can pull down again another 2% on SPX. So yeah, watching that trade. We'll go through Tesla in a minute. But yeah, so this is the trade. If it goes up, market kind of starts to either look to the downside or at least try to stay flat to downish if this happens. Right. Let's now. It makes sense to look at the futures. Futures starting to come down, obviously, and not this chart here. If you're trading immediately, there's the chart 5, then the 8. If that breaches the 21, Here is what I'm watching, the hourly chart. And one thing I clearly notice here on the hourly chart is the squeeze. I don't like this stuff. I categorically don't like this stuff. What happens with the squeeze is this, right? It squeezes, then either it moves to the upside or it moves to the downside, right? In this case, we were correct about the move to the upside because we've been watching Apple and we knew Apple was going to move to the upside, and so it was easier for us to catch this move to the upside. Now it's doing the same thing. Now, I'll be very cautious here. And also Apple Trade is trying to get matured, and Microsoft as well. However, we'll look into that. I think there is still more upside, but we'll look into that in a minute. Let's go here on this chart. This is the daily chart, right? This is the daily chart. Right now, it's bouncing off of the one standard deviation. So to the downside, 3981 is what I'm watching on ES. So that would be about 3963 area for SPX. That breaches, we are looking at a push down here into 3970, 3975 to 3970 area. That would translate to about 3955 to 3950 area in general on SPX. And that's to the downside. And if it breaches it to basically it's the 200 moving average to the downside. If that breaches, then we'll reassess the situation down here into 3967. That would mean 3947, 45 area, 3945 to 3950 in general on SPX. And to the upside, this is what we're watching on the upside. 4022, 4020 to 4022 general area on ES. That would translate to about 40,000 to 4002 area on SPX. So 4,000 makes sense if it hits there. Then I think people will try to again short it. That's fine if it makes sense to short it. That's fine too. But if it clears there, then expecting a hit of this number 4035 to 4040 area, that would translate to about 4020 to 40 yeah 4015 to 40, sorry, 4017 to 4020 area, right? uh, I'm just saying 20 points behind ES, so that's the number on SPX. And we'll reassess after ES clears this 4020 area. So that's about 30 points to the upside. If it does clear there, then we're looking for a hit into 50 moving average. Then again, looking for a breather. And what would get us here? Obviously, this guy, Apple. 1 hour chart is getting oversold, so very likely if it starts to come back down, if it breaches the baseline here, then expect it to come back into the five. Then that breaches, expect it to come back into the eight. And then about here 137, if that breaches, we'll expect it to come back into the 136.60 area. Then the mean is sitting almost at 136.30 area. So this is to the downside. Expectation from for the upside is about 138.69, 138.70. That's let's go here on this chart. So the expectation was for us on Friday, very likely it was going to go hit this number, right? So after this line, the 50 EMA, if it cleared and it closed above that number, very good. So the next step for it is to the upside is 138.60, 138.70 area. That clears, then we are expecting it to hit just about here, 139.30, the 50 moving average. If that clears, then let's plan after it clears the 50 moving average on the daily, right? Any further upside, well, even for that to happen, there's a decent resistance around here, 138.60, 138.70 area. But if that clears, that's a big if, though. That's a big if. And if that clears, then we're looking for this 50 moving average, 139.25. And, and I'm not really sure if it's going to get there, and even if it gets there, I'm not sure if it's going to cross there. So yeah, keeping that there. Not really plotting anything above 139.20, 139.25 area as of now. And very likely, if it gets there, I'll be shorting it. Cool thing. So this cycle is still not complete. This has got oversold here. It's starting to come back up into, it hasn't gotten into overbought territory yet, and MACD hasn't given a clear signal to the downside yet. So I'm pretty reasonably optimistic, right? Reasonably optimistic for it to go all the way up till here. But because the 1 hour chart is oversold here, and this works in cycles, oversold, overbought, just like that, overbought, oversold, same thing. So waiting for that, either it bounces here or here or here. If it bright chances that if it breaches the 8, then bright chances that it'll come back into the mean. But we'll follow the path. If it starts to come back down, we'll follow the same path again. And watching RSI here, this is the main thing that I'm watching. If it, same thing, if it comes back down here in a rush, then we'll look forward for another bounce spot. Right. Now let's get into, we already discussed this chart and 10-year. Well, the same thing is happening with 10-year, and you can clearly see what is happening here. So far, it's above this 8, and then this would continue probably into FOMC. And FOMC comes in 25 bips, very likely it's going to come back down and crater below the 8 here, right? So till FOMC, I think there's going to chop. But to the upside, if it starts to move to the upside, 3.6, 3.59, 3.6 is what I'm looking at. Another 7 basis points to the upside. Right. Yeah, this is the chart I'm trying to get to. Microsoft. Well, Microsoft is above the mean, and the idea is for it to remain above the mean and test this number, 244. That's the idea with Microsoft. Let's get with Microsoft here. Right. So this idea is still valid. If it clears here, then we are still looking at 241. This is where I'll probably exit my longs, 241, between 241 to 242 area. And if it clears right about here, 241.50, 241.60, then I'll put on a long position again. And the idea is still for it to hit this number, 244. And if it clears this 50 moving average and the 100 moving average on the day, that's when I'll probably go long into 243 to 44 with regard to Microsoft. Yeah, and then this is pretty doable, but doable only if it clears right about here, the 50 moving average and the 100 moving average. But this will get tested. I am reasonably optimistic and reasonably certain that it will get tested right about here at some point during the day. If it happens right at the open, that's even better. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. And if that clears, then we're looking forward for a push all the way up here into 244. That clears, very likely 245 push. That's with Microsoft, and DXY keeps moving up, and very likely it's going to go here. But till that time, let's get here, and yeah, the market's kind of pushing down. Fair enough. And Microsoft is overbought here, so makes sense for it to come back into the 5 again. We look for another bounce here, 240, that breaches. You know the drill, right? 5 breaches the 8, 8 breaches next is right about here, 238, that breaches uh, right about here, 237.95, and the mean is sitting all the way down here at 236.60 area, right? So this is what we're watching. And if you have Microsoft and Apple doing the same thing to the downside, there is no freaking way that that SPX is moving up, right? It just the math doesn't work. So you want to see Apple and Microsoft buoyant if you want to see if you want to play SPX to the upside. Unless that happens, I will just not play SPX to the upside. Uh, right. Yeah. So there's no point looking at upside and for now. For now, unless both are doing the same thing, right? Both are doing the same exact thing, and I'll be watching the RSI on both of these. Cool thing. Next is Tesla. Let's get into Tesla a bit. The understanding with Tesla was for it to go up to right about here. The right. So we wanted it to clear the 5, and the idea was for it to jump all the way up here into one. This was 130. No, right here, 138. The idea was for it to jump all the way till here, 138 area. Did not happen. Did not happen. I'm still hopeful. We still have the MACD cross to the upside. This is not in overbought territory. Nothing here says overbought territory. My understanding was that it's going to go hit this right about here, 138, 138.30 area, right till the one standard deviation. If that clears, then we're going to go hit all the way up to this area, 138, 138.50. Obviously, I sold my equity position, half of it at least, and I'll keep doing that. To the downside, if it starts to come down, again, we are looking at 130.30, basically the 21 on, and these lines will adjust wherever that 21 will be on the day. That would be another bounce spot. That breaches the one standard deviation, that breaches the five, that breaches the eight. Eight is not a case I'm looking at today. However, if it comes down to the eight, I'll again be looking to a bounce. And I'll again be trading the same thing here on the 1 hour chart. It is again in the same category as Apple and Microsoft. And if it follows through to the downside, because of the overbought conditions, breaches the five, breaches the eight, then very likely it's going to come down at 133.20, and the mean is sitting all the way down here at 131. So that's how I'm looking at things. And if DXY starts to move to the downside after hitting a major move in average, then I'll probably look for another bounce somewhere about either the 5 or the 8 or the mean. This area 132 is again a good decent bounce spot. We extend this line right here. Yeah, 132 to 131.80 area looks pretty decent for a bounce. So I'll be looking for that. Probably not in an, I would not be trading any big positions. Probably I'll be cautious with about, I don't know, 5 contracts or something like that, but not trading anything big as of now because it's unclear. And if Apple, Tesla, and Amazon again starts to come back to their mean on the hour, obviously you'll have SPX starting to come back down. We'll get to SPX in a minute. How many minutes? We still got time. Right. So I'm still looking at the bigger picture here for Tesla. This looks really, really, really nice. And if it were, if it were different times, I would simply go long Tesla. I'd simply go long Tesla. Uh, this thing is crossing. This thing is crossing. MACD about to cross. Nice. Almost here at the 8 142.80 area. And if this thing starts to run, Apple starts to push to the upside, very likely, or rather if the 1 hour charts were not that overbought as of now, I would likely be going, I would not have trimmed this position at all. Probably I'd have held on to my 1,000 shares straightforward. Anyways, so another trade here is Amazon. This is what I'm looking at. Amazon mean reversion on the week. Again, this chart is great. I don't know if anybody swung Amazon or whatnot, but this is the idea. Still, this is the idea. 101, 101.50 area. This is still the idea with Amazon. Looking at Amazon here, looking, this chart is not very convincing, but we knew there was a bounce. Either it was here or at the mean, but there was a bounce here. There was a bounce based on this chart. There was a bounce. Now, idea is for it to hit the mean and probably take a breather. If the mean clears, then we are looking forward for another push of about 5 to 6 points to the upside. Let's look at this chart. The idea is still here, right? This is the minimum that needs to happen. That's my understanding as of now. The 5 on the month. This is a minimum that I'm looking at Amazon to deliver. If Apple holds, then Amazon will hit this number 99.80. If that clears, we are looking at a push of 100. I think 101 right about here. 101 30, 101.50 area, and these lines will adjust as and when the data gets populated. To the downside, if it starts to come back down 96.40, then again another bounce spot is about 93 to 94 area. Right. And what else? What else? Bitcoin. Let's touch on Bitcoin a bit. So Bitcoin on the week, it is detached from its five. So if it starts to come back down, 20,900 area is it's okay. It seems pretty overbought, not pretty overbought, but seems logical if it starts to come back down into 20,900 area. To the upside, we are still expecting it to hit this 200 moving average in the week, 24/7, 24/8. That clears. I don't think it's going to clear that just yet. However, If the 25 bips come into picture from FOMC, then you can expect it to move up probably till here, 25.5, 25.6. That's the idea here. If not, very likely it's going to go hit this number and start to take a breather. Why would it take a breather? You can see this right here, right? It's getting overbought. RSI is getting overbought. So by the time if it starts to go up and hit the 200 moving average, the RSI, the average of the RSI will also be overbought. Then very likely it's going to pull back down. How deep of a breather? We'll see where the five is, and when it is hitting the 200 moving average, we'll see where the five is. Then we'll act accordingly to the downside. As of now, it looks like it's SMI cross to the upside, nice and easy. MACD is still cross to the upside. Looks okay here. Probably let's go here on this chart. Yeah, it needs to clear this. This is a major resistance, the 50 moving average. This is a major resistance, and if it clears there, SMI is still crossing here on the month. So my understanding is that it'll clear this. It'll clear this. Probably it's going to go all the way up here into this line, 23.6. Then very likely it's going to go hit this 24.2 to 24.5, and then probably start to come back down. And this line, if it after clearing this line, if it start to come back down, we would expect it to hold the 50 moving average this time, right? We would definitely expect it to hold the 50 moving average. And this is just how technicals work. Getting oversold and getting oversold. SMI crosses, the thing starts to move up and hitting a major moving average, taking a breather. And if it clears a major moving average, there's enough ammo for it to do that. And if Fed comes in with the 25 bips, and very likely all the risk assets will start to move to the upside. Let's look at that thing here as well. This looks overbought here. This definitely looks overbought. We definitely need a breather. Uh, Probably we want to see it come down here, 22.3, and it'll try to bounce. Same thing, just like what happened here. Yeah, but here the difference is that it was hitting the third standard deviation, and then it came back down. It hasn't hit that yet, but it violated the second standard deviation. So very likely, I'm thinking that it needs to come back down here, and we'll keep a watch on this number here, 22.3, wherever the five is. Very likely, it's going to go hit that number and start to bounce. If it breaches that, then we're looking at the number eight here. And probably we're looking for another bounce. But if that breaches, we're definitely looking for it to come down all the way into 20,000. And here the mean is sitting at about 19.6. So yeah, from it now this is the uncertainty, right? No, the expectations are 25. So uh, basically, if the interest rates move lower or the pace of hikes start to slow down, then you will see risk assets in favor again, especially things like this Bitcoin or tech. At least for the moment, at least for the moment. But the bond market, people are looking at the bond market and saying, they, they, they are basically trying to say that the bond market is correct and the Fed is not going to be able to sustain that 5% or over. So that's what is happening right now with the market and with the Fed and the bond market. Bond market is saying that Fed would not be able to go up to the five, or even even if it does, it's not going to sustain that five. But let's see how that plays out. We're just gonna go down to our 1 hour chart, and we'll do what we do best, predicting putting our all the technicals together and predicting where it is gonna go. USO thoughts. USO, yeah, USO is dependent on the oil. Let's go here. Mean reversion on the week is done, so very likely if it pushes above the mean, which it is doing right now, expect it to hit this number right about here. The basically the what do you call this, 21 or 83 on the week. Then about I think that's going to clear. Then very likely it's going to go hit this number 83. So between 83 to 83.50, somewhere it's going to take a breather. And if the breather, I don't know if there is any data point regarding oil is coming out, but if it does, very likely the breather will come back, will push it back into the mean. And after it, if it does clear the 100 moving average right about here, let's say 83.50 area, then you can expect it to hit 84.13 to 84.25 area. But very likely it's going to go continue to the upside, very likely. We are watching the MACD here. It just crossed to the upside. Very likely that'll start to form a trend, and we'll see U.S. oil to the upside. And also, don't forget that U.S. oil is also a China reopen story. Oil is definitely a China reopen story, and you want to keep a close watch on this thing as it is a global commodity. Oil, iron ore, and copper. You want to keep a close watch on that. Right. Let's go here. Hobart conditions, not yet, but yeah, there you go. There you go. So very likely it's going to go hit this number, 82.66. Very likely a breather here. How deep of a breather? It might come back down into this 82.16 area where it is right now. But if that breaches to the downside, then very likely 1890 is what we're watching to the downside. And for it to continue to the upside, it needs to clear over this number here. Good that we looked at this chart. It needs to clear over 8260 area, right? 8260, wherever this line is right now, it needs to clear over that resistance. Then we'll see any further upside. Till then, no more upside. Right, right. And we should have gone. I think we did predict this bounce, right? Sustainable bounce right here. But yeah, so we should have gone long when at least the 8 was clearing 21 to the upside. We should have gone long this thing. Anyways, I don't generally trade any of this stuff now. I used to trade ERX a lot, but I don't trade it anymore. I Yeah. So I think the sustained bounce. Yeah, there you go. That was a sustained bounce area, right? So yeah, if it clears here, basically this is a bigger picture. If it clears the 21, then expect it to come back into the 5. I'm very optimistic about this 5 getting tested again. Very likely it's going to hit this number and start to take a breather. Cool thing. Anything? All right, 3 minutes to open. Let's move into live trading.